Hello, my name is David Duffy. I am a retired physician here to share some thoughts about healing with you. This is our presentation number 14. Today we talk about strokes. To begin, we think about the anatomy of the brain. There are millions of nerves in the brain that do many wonderful things. You can think, you can walk, you can write, you can play tennis, you can dance, you can play the piano, you can analyze, all the activities that you can do. How does that work? In the brain, there are two sides, and what's interesting is the nerves on the left side of the brain control the right side of the body, and the nerves on the right side of the brain control the left side of the body. There is a section of the brain called the motor cortex, which controls muscle movement. So the left side of the brain will control the right arm and right leg. The speech is controlled by nerves on the left side of the brain. Okay? The vision is controlled by the posterior side, the occipital lobes of the brain. Hearing is on the sides, and emotion is in the limbic cortex, which is a fancy thing, and they don't fully understand that. Okay, so that's the brain where it sits. Now, in strokes, we have a problem with the coordination between the blood vessels and the brain. So let's think about blood vessels. The neck has a carotid artery on each side, and that divides into two branches. The inner carotid goes to the brain. The outer carotid goes to the face. Similar on the left side, okay? About the level of the eyes, then in the back of the brain, we have two vertebral arteries going up the sides and into the back of the brain. So as they go up, there are connections between the carotids and the vertebral arteries and major arteries going to each section in the brain. Okay? How does the heart work? Blood from the body coming through the veins goes up to a receiving chamber on the right side of the heart called the right atrium. It pumps blood into the pumping station, the right ventricle, and the right ventricle pumps the blood without oxygen into the lungs, where the oxygen comes in and the carbon dioxide goes out. Blood from the lungs goes to the receiving station called the left atrium, the entranceway to the heart, and the left ventricle, it pumps into the left ventricle, and that's the pumping station that pumps the blood to the head, to the heart, to the kidneys, to the muscles, all the rest of the body, right? We are built according to a perfect model, but we are not always up to standards in terms of our individual capacity. We can have a weak heart, we can have a deformed valve. Over time, we can have difficulty with the heartbeat. And one of the patterns that is relevant to strokes is when the receiving station, the atrium, becomes coordinated, and instead of having a regular beat, it's kind of quivering, and the blood is not being pumped properly. When the blood is not pumped properly, the blood can stagnate and clots can form. The condition where the heart is quivering is called atrial fibrillation. Atrial means the chamber, and fibrillation means an irregular beat. And that can cause little clots, and when they get to the left ventricle, they can get pumped to the rest of the body, including the brain, and cause strokes. Okay, there's one more element here, and that is blood clotting. We know that the blood contains red blood cells, which contain the oxygen and hemoglobin. We know that there are white blood cells that fight infection, but there are also two other ingredients that we should be aware of. In the bone marrow, there is a large cell that forms and breaks into little pieces called platelets. If you have a kitchen with tiles and there's an accident or the floor is damaged, we're going to need new tiles to replace it. Okay, think of the platelets as the tiles for repair. Now, the body is brilliantly designed and is there for protection, okay? So when you get hit and it smashes or it gets cut, that cutting breaks into the blood vessels and exposes collagen, the scar tissue kind of stuff. And when a platelet is flowing around and there's a collagen edge or piece, the platelet sticks with that. And once it sticks, it gets activated to release little hormonal signals, and the platelets clump together to start to make a plug to stop the bleeding. Meanwhile, your liver has made a whole series of protein that are floating around. And when the platelets get activated, these clotting factors also are activated, and you form a clot that clogs and blocks the blood vessel. Just like when there's a car crash, the streets are shut down, the ambulances, all are there. Okay, when you have a clot, that happens also. And in the repair process, there is an enzyme, plasmin, which can dissolve the clots and repair it. The cells repair it, and the blood vessel can open up again. Okay, now, why do we get strokes? You're not getting cut, you're not getting smashed. All of a sudden, boom, you can't move your arm, can't speak. Why? How does disease occur? Okay, let's imagine that there's a young couple who's getting their first house. They buy it, they pay the mortgage, and they have a wonderful house with, 3 bedrooms and a den and a playroom and a 2-car garage. Wonderful, there's plenty of space. Okay, 20 years later, they have 3 kids, and what happened to the house? There's so much junk in the garage that they only can put 1 car there, and the other car has to be parked in the driveway or on the street. Their oldest daughter is going to college, and now her room is now a junk room with all sorts of things in it. And of course, the basement is all full of boxes and storage and stuff like this. So that is not as functional as it was before. Well, in the body, that happens the same way. If we were a person called House and the garage was clogged up, we would call that a case of garagitis. And we have bedroomosis. And we have basement syndrome. So as your body gets full of junk and impairs the function of organs and systems, and we deteriorate, we have to go to the doctor, say, why can't I do this? And guess what? You have a disease called whatever. But you go to a kidney doctor and a lung doctor and a nerve doctor and an eye doctor and a tooth doctor, all this kind of stuff. But in some ways, the same disease has occurred in all parts of the body, but each has a subspecialty. Okay. Now, we really want to prevent strokes. And when we talked about heart disease, we said that high cholesterol, high blood pressure can cause hardening of the arteries, narrowing the arteries to block blood vessels and cause a heart attack. Well, the same basic disease process occurs to cause strokes. We have hypertension, pressure, and the blood vessels get narrower. And when we have a blood vessel that is small in the deeper part of the brain, we can experience something called a transient ischemic attack, TIA. You all of a sudden, out of the blue, have difficulty talking, have a weakness in your face, you have a weakness in your hand, you can't move your fingers or something. A little bit of your body is affected in a strange way. You go to the hospital, you have all the tests, and fortunately, it has corrected itself within 24 hours. And this symptom is alarming, but then it disappears. This is analogous to going to Manhattan and trying to get crosstown and being blocked by a UPS or FedEx truck double parking on a side street so you can't get by. It's a total blockage for a small time and then it clears. So a person might have platelets and having a little clot, but not a heavy clot, and then it passes. Okay, now, when this happens, the doctor will say, oh my goodness, you had a TIA and you should start taking aspirin and, we're gonna give you more medicine for your blood pressure, things like that. But this should be a warning so that we do something more than just take a pill for that. We all already mentioned atrial fibrillation, okay? We have the heart, it's irregular and little clots form. When that happens, the strokes are not huge, but over time, you have a little stroke here, a little stroke here, a little stroke here. And one of the common results of that is to have difficulty in your mental capacity. You forget things, you don't pronounce, you can't remember a word. And if many of these little strokes happen over time, it can get serious. In that kind of situation, they give anticoagulations, blood thinners like Coumadin and things like that. Okay, because they want to stop the clot. Now let's talk about a major stroke. You're going along, you have high blood pressure, maybe you've had a heart attack, I don't know. There probably is an awareness that you are at risk to have a stroke and you probably are taking medicine. But even so, you haven't really cleaned out the body. You haven't really slowed down and really, you're not really taking care of yourself. You're just kind of leaving it to chance and the medicine hopefully will protect you. Okay. What happens? At this point, you have a major stroke and the middle cerebral artery on the left side of your brain gets clogged. And no blood is going to a lot of the brain, including the muscle, the motor section, and the speech section. And with this devastating stroke, you are totally paralyzed on the right side of your body. Your mouth is drooping. Your arm can't move. Your leg can't move. You can't talk because the control of that is gone. Just like in a hurricane, everything is out, disrupted for a week or so. There's no electricity, things like that. That happens in the brain. And in the healing process, the brain swells up, the repair cells come in, and slowly we get better. Now, if it's a very serious stroke and much is damaged, we may have permanent paralysis or very little movement. However, most of the strokes are going to have nerves that are still intact. Not in the hurricane, not all the houses, in the earthquake, not all the houses collapsed. In the hurricane, not all the houses had trees fall on them. So there's survivors, there's nerves that are still there. The thing is that we need to use those nerves and start activating those nerves so that they can function again. If you assume you're doomed and you can't move and you don't even try to move, you're going to stay paralyzed. You haven't made an effort. But with rehabilitation and practicing walking and moving and stuff like that, we can regain much of our function, and it's quite remarkable, our capacity to heal. Now, in our modern development of treatment, when the crisis occurs, when you have a stroke, they have a protocol where you arrive at the emergency room, the stroke team comes down, like an emergency, just like heart emergency, and they come down and they give a medicine that has a basically an enzyme that dissolves the fresh clot of the stroke. That medicine is called TPA, and it's basically a genetically modified, constructed enzyme that dissolves clots that we have in our body already. And of course, that's a very expensive treatment. One dose is over $2,000. And if you do that, plus the intervention with the labs and the angiograms and stuff, that could be $12,000 or $15,000. Let's now think about the purpose of a stroke. I mean, sounds like a bad purpose, right? But you have been living for 60, 70 years. You keep pushing yourself. You keep living in a state of stress. Your blood pressure goes up and down. You still eat shrimp, I don't know, whatever. And you've had multiple warnings. If a person does not pay their gas and electric bill, the next bill would say, you know, you're overdue, pay this. If you still don't pay, they say, if you don't pay such and such by such and such a time, we're going to cut off your electric and gas supply. And if you still don't pay, boom, one day you wake up and the electricity is off and the house cold because there's no gas. You can't cook on this gas stove. In a sense, that's how the body operates. If a person is under stress and pushing, the body may choose to, boom, say, that's it, that's enough, stop. Which is kind of a sad thing to go through. We would much rather prevent it in the first place. And what I would like to see happen is that people who especially have relatives that have had strokes and have already diagnoses of high blood pressure, diabetes, irregular heartbeats and things like that. In addition to appropriate medicine, we would like to institute some changes in our lifestyle that can meaningfully improve our condition and hopefully prevent disasters like strokes. What does that involve? That involves treating yourself like you are nice to other people. The golden rule, do unto others as you should have others do unto you. But here in health, we want you to be nice to yourself like you're nice to others. And that means defining your limits. How much sleep do you need? How much exercise should you get? What is the best food for you to eat? What is the best schedule for you? And in our society, we are asked to do things that are extremely unhealthy. We are asked to work long hours, survive on coffee, not have enough time to eat, skipping meals, being yelled at, whatever. And if we're going to protect ourselves, if we need to protect ourselves like we supposedly protect our children, we're going to need to say no to certain things. We're going to set limits and obey the rules that you set for yourself. And in this process, if there are enough volunteers to do this and have it tracked in the electronic medical record of your physician and even in your own diary, hopefully we can get a number of people who have beat strokes, who have recovered from strokes, who have prevented strokes, okay? We need enough people to do the research to find out what really works. You can't just take the word of, this old doctor to say, oh, you have to do this and that. No, what works for me, I don't know what works for you. I can't tell you to do exactly what I do because I don't know what you need. Only you can know what you need to do. And even if you know what you need to do, are you willing to do it to help yourself to define a pattern of living that is healthy? I would submit that when we do that, the body has a very good mechanism to heal itself. We are going to define our boundaries, stay within the boundaries, and just like the diet that reversed heart disease, we should discover in more detail what helps prevent strokes. Okay, this concludes this presentation. Next time, we're going to talk about states of denial, which might be a subtitle of when a person does not listen to their body. Thank you. Till next time.